Hey everybody, welcome to GSP TV. I'm so glad that you're joining us for this week's episode. This week we're going to be talking about how to have SMART goals and what having a vision for the future really means. We'll also be interviewing Christian Credit Counselor's founder, Jerry McTaggart. Last week we spoke to his son Greg, who is the current CEO and director, and this week we have the privilege of speaking with his father and getting some wisdom and insight from him today. Before we get into this week's episode, remember that we encourage viewer feedback via Facebook or Twitter, so feel free to get in touch with us, ask us questions, send us in money tips. We love to interact and respond with you. This week's Church of the Week is Destiny Church right here in San Diego, California, giving you a shout out for running the Good Samaritan program. So if you're in San Diego and you'd love to get started with the Good Samaritan DVD series, get on down to Destiny Church and the good folks down there will look after you. Every week we share powerful and amazing stories and testimonies about people whose lives have been changed through going through the Good Samaritan program. I want to share a couple of testimonies this week. The first one is from Shauna, who wrote into us to tell us how much her life has changed through enrolling in our debt reduction program, and have been working with her, helping her get out of debt. And she wrote, "As always, I appreciate your organization and can't say enough thanks for helping us come out from under our credit card debt. We really thank God that we are almost there, and it was with your help." Absolutely powerful. There's nothing that is more exciting than hearing wonderful stories about people becoming debt-free and their lives transformed. The next testimonial that I want to share with you is some viewer feedback that we received from someone who's been watching the GSP DVD series. They wrote in how much it impacted them, and they said the importance of having a vision and action plan to accomplish that vision was the biggest impact of this week's lesson. For too long I've been living in the now with my money, feeling like I'm always running short and constantly playing catch up. My vision has been broadened to possibilities rather than ignoring them because of the impossibilities I was only able to see. I'm excited for my future. What a powerful feedback, and we just love the feedback, so keep it coming. And that leads us into our practical teaching. You know, the testimonial kind of said it all. She wrote, that her vision has broadened to see possibilities rather than the impossibilities that she only saw previously. And our practical teaching, we're going to talk about vision, we're going to talk about breaking it down and just setting goals and the process of goal setting, and we're going to use the SMART acronym, which is a very popular acronym used all throughout the world. But the scripture that really I want to kick it off with today is in Proverbs 29 verse 18. It says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." And it's a powerful thing to have vision. Without a vision, the people perish. So having a vision is the most important thing. There's another great scripture in Proverbs 13:16 says, "A wise man thinks ahead," or a wise man has vision or sets goals. A fool doesn't, and he even brags about it. Proverbs 21 verse 5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead surely to advantage, but everyone who is hasty surely comes to poverty." So it's about being diligent and being wise planners. And I've learned this, that you can either be ruled by life or you can be the ruler in life. One happens automatically, being ruled, but the other we must be deliberate about. If you want to rule in life, we have to be deliberate, and the way we are deliberate is by writing down our goals. So if you didn't know what SMART, the acronym SMART stood for, it's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, timely, or you set a time frame. So let's jump into specific. Goals should be very straightforward. You want to be able to hold yourself accountable for achieving exactly what you set out to do. Brian Tracy said, "Goals in writing are dreams with deadlines." And you know what? It can start as simply as like a daily to-do list. You don't have to go, "Oh my gosh, what are my 5, 10, 15, 20-year goals?" Yes, you want to put those down, but start with a daily to-do list and list your goals from there. Did you know the Apostle Paul had a daily to-do list? We know that because the top item on his list was found in Philippians, where he said, "But one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind me and reaching forward to that which is ahead. In other words, he had something that he made sure that he did every day, which was letting go of the past and reaching forward to the future. And here's the deal. Your future is way too important to be worried about your past. So when you're setting your goals, don't be limited by past failures, mistakes, or rejections or fears. Step into the great things that God has for you. So in making it's specific, it's the what, why, and how of your goal. When Jesus asked blind Bartimaeus, who was begging on the side of the road, what he wanted, well, blind Bartimaeus was blind. Surely Bartimaeus would have been thinking, Jesus, you know that I'm blind. But Jesus still asked him, what do you want? Because he needed blind Bartimaeus to be specific. Bart, told Jesus, hey, he wanted to see, and the miracle came, and blind Bartimaeus was no longer blind. If you can determine this for each goal you set, being specific that is, you'll have better vision. I love the verse in Matthew 9 verse 29. It says, according to your faith, let it be unto you. Or you could really describe that scripture as saying, according to your expectation, according to what you believe, what you put down, what you're expecting God to do. And no better way to do that is to be specific with God, to be specific with your goals. Secondly, measurable. If you can't measure it, then you can't manage it. It's as simple as that. If the goal is achieved, the goal is a success. However, you do not have to wait until the goal is achieved before you can measure it. There are several short-term measurements you can make to determine how well you are doing at achieving your goal. It's always uplifting to be able to measure the progress that you are making. Number 3 is attainable. When you figure out goals that are very important to you, you begin to figure out ways to make them happen. You begin seeing previous overlooked opportunity which would have brought you closer to meeting your goal. If the goal you set is way out of your reach, it will be very unlikely that you'll be following through with meeting it. The next one is realistic. This means doable. It doesn't mean easy. Devise a plan of attack for how you're going to achieve your goal. Start small and increase slightly until you reach your definite goal. This will be a slow process, but a process that is realistic. For instance, don't go out and pledge $1 million to your church's building fund if you don't even have a job. Instead, your first goal should really be getting a job first, paying your bills, tithing, paying off some debts before you go and make an unrealistic goal of suddenly pledging $1 million toward your local church when you don't even have a job. So you don't want to set yourself up for failure, but you don't want to make it too easy either. I always think that in life we should have something called a God gap. And how this works is this. If you can do it, your vision is too small. If you can do it, then you don't need God's help. I love what Ed Young tweeted just this week. He said, when you fall on your knees before God, your needs will be met. It's not a position of passivity, it's a position of power. I think we should make that the tweet of the week. I think actually we should have a tweet of the week every week. What a great idea. So make sure that you have a vision that you really depend on God to fulfill. If you can do it, then you don't need God, you don't need faith. Next is timely. Set a time frame for your goal. Putting an endpoint on your goal gives you a target. If you don't set a time, you're not held as accountable as you need to be. Everyone will benefit from setting goals if they are smart. Apply this principle and it will be a lot easier to meet the goals that you set. And just remember to always involve God in every activity that you do. Even with the small goals to the medium goals to the large goals, God is there to help you and guide you every step of the way. Right now, we're going to have a wonderful interview with Jerry McTaggart, who is the founder of Christian Credit Counselors. I can't wait to chat with Jerry and to enjoy his great principles of wisdom that he's going to bring. So stay tuned, we're going to be right back. Hey everybody, welcome back. Our honored guest today is Jerry McTaggart, who is the founder of Christian Credit Counselors. It's a great honor to have him with us today. Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for making yourself available. And I know you're in retirement now, of course, so coming on to be with us today and just talk to us a little bit about your journeys. Now, you've been in credit counseling a long time. Can you tell me a little bit how you got started, because I know this is like your 50th year. You started in the 60s, and kind of how Christian Credit Counselors got started, and basically just your life story, really, isn't it?
That's all you want. Okay. Yeah, I started. I was in the Marine Corps, and I ended up being in the legal department in the Marines, amongst being a grunt. And when I was in there, I'd spent several years in an orphanage before I went to the Marine Corps, and didn't have parents that. We didn't have debt. We didn't, my mother didn't. We didn't have any debt. We didn't have anything. So, while I was in the Marine Corps, I found out I was giving court martials to people that had letters of indebtedness, and I just didn't understand it. It was kind of a mystery to me. In other words, you go out and you get some bills, and you don't pay, or they sue you, and they go to your commanding officer. So, when I got out, after turning down an appointment to Annapolis, I got out and. Decided I took a job as a credit counselor in Detroit in 1962, and loved it, and did budgets for people, went to their home and filled them out, and that's what got me started. How did we start Christian Credit Counselors? Well, I retired in 1980, and I went to Florida. And one of my friends, the church I went to down there was Aloma Baptist Church, and Larry Burkett was around. He used to have Christian Financial Concepts, which is now Crown Ministries.
Yeah.
And one of his supervisors in the area came around, and they said, well, we do budgets for people, but when it comes to calling the creditors, they want to know who are we, and we have no credibility with them. And would you think of starting your credit counseling business all over again, maybe as a nonprofit or something? And so I said, well, let me think about that, and went home, prayed about it, and I said, well, let's see, we're going to call it Christian Credit Counselors. So we did, and I funded it all 100%. There was no fees, nothing to anybody, and pretty soon it just took off, and pretty soon we have 200 clients, and then 2,000 clients, and then 20,000 clients, and here we are today. So
what changes have you seen in the credit counseling industry, or even in the credit card industry over the years? I mean, you've been able to see 5 decades worth of history. A lot of people, even like myself, Visa, MasterCard, they were just always around. The credit cards kind of emerged in your era.
Yes, well, actually, credit cards came out, I think, in 1951 with Diner's Card.
Okay.
Diner's Card. You used to have a Diner's Card. It was basically used just to go out to eat.
Okay.
And then about 58, I think it was, them and American Express started, going out. So it wasn't just Montgomery Ward's card and a Sears card. You'd go to a place and you had a Visa, and that would be covered by all. So that's one of the evolutions that I saw. One of the things I've seen today, though, is there's a consistent thing. I mean, people will always be in debt. God says there will always be the poor, and they will always be in the debt. It's unfortunate, but there will always be people in debt that borrow more than they should, or things happen. I mean, a lot of it is just things happen. You got a good job, you get laid off with no notice. Your wife gets pregnant, she wasn't supposed to be, or you weren't supposed to be. Things just happen. Things just happen, and sometimes you have to be prepared for that. But things do happen, and people get in behind the 8 ball, and things happen. But one of the things I've seen that has been worse this time, though, is the rate of interest that the credit card companies have moved up. They used to be a maximum of like 18%.
Okay.
And now you see them as high as 38%.
Yeah.
And people just cannot get any traction with that. They pay and pay and pay, and the average person that owes about, say, $15,000, it'll take them about 41 years to get out of debt.
Wow.
Paying the minimum payment and paying at least 18 to 20%. Well, there are ones that are higher than that. So, and then you have the debt settlement companies that many people confuse credit counseling with debt settlement, and it's absolutely not the same. To me, debt settlement is the worst thing in the world you could go to. I mean, if you have $30,000 worth of cash and you want to settle your debt for $15,000 with a credit card company, call them up and negotiate it. They'll do it. They'll do it for you. But don't go to a company that wants to make payments, and then they take, almost all cases, they take their fees up front, can't settle it, and then they introduce you to bankruptcy 2 years later after all the creditors beat you up and you ruined all your credit. You should go to a licensed credit counselor if you ever have any trouble.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that actually with your son last week, Greg, and he gave us some fantastic insight on that, on steering clear of these debt settlement companies.
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously you've seen a lot of changes. What would be one thing that you see has remained constant? I guess you kind of alluded to, you know that in your statement before when you talked about the one thing you've seen, I guess, is people always in debt. Is there anything else really that you've just kind of seen as a consistent thing in the industry, or?
Well, it's just the need, the need for budgeting, the need for discipline. You know, the libraries are full of books on how to budget, so that's nothing unique. Schools are, colleges are, but to incorporate that in yourself. When you go to the store, if you know you have a charge card, you're going to spend more. The charge card company knows that. That's why they gave it to you.
Yeah.
Because there's no limit. If I have $80 with me, I cannot spend more than $80.
Yeah.
And I'll probably spend less than 80 because I don't want to be embarrassed at the cash register and go 81.50 and then I got to put something back. Whereas if you have a charge card, there's no embarrassment, and people don't mean to get into debt. It's just so easy. Now it's only $80, it's only $3 a month, it's only this. But then these things add up, and then with this more than usurious interest rates that the banks have been allowed to charge since they've moved to Delaware and Dakotas to get around it. It used to be 12%, now they're charging whatever they want. And you just can't get any traction paying it. And that's why coming to Christian Credit, you know, we're certified with them, so as soon as you come to us, we don't have to call them to get approval. We already have their approval. We've already obtained that, so your interest rate may be 30%, now it's 3 or it's 2 or it's 0.
Yeah, amazing.
Automatically.
And you think there are more books now today and DVDs and CDs than ever about getting out of debt and building wealth, yet it seems like people are more in debt than ever before. I mean, is this really just because credit is more easier to get? Do you think over the years have you seen credit more easy to obtain, or is it just the wrong kind of people getting the credit? Is the interest rate? I mean, what do you really put that down to?
Well, it's more institutions compete for your dollar. Okay. I mean, you go to college or whatever, and the average person going to college, I think, owes $7,700 on their credit cards when they're getting out. And the only thing worse than that is student loans, you know, which, you know, they're getting that because they're all guaranteed by the government. I don't know what else I could say about it. It's just discipline. You know, you have to, with everything you do in your life, you have to have some discipline and don't go for it. I mean, everybody wants a new car, everybody wants a new house. And you get a new house, you want new furniture, then you have kids, and you're still on this one income, but you got this card and this card and this card and this card, and it's still only one income or two incomes. And also, you should pay yourself first. If you make $1,000, you should pay yourself $100. Pay yourself and give God what is His, and you'll never go wrong. I mean, that is, I can tell you that. I've followed that all my life. Just pay yourself and give God His, and that is good wisdom, and God will take care of you because you didn't cheat Him.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, I've personally known you for a few years, and what a wonderful example you are as a generous giver, as you support many organizations. We'll talk about Catherine's Kids fairly shortly. And you know, what would be your kind of advice to someone who's probably, maybe they're out there and going, look, we can't even make ends meet, let alone pay ourselves or pay, you know, the tithe to the local church. I mean, have you ever been in that position, or what kind of advice would you give to somebody if they were sitting in your office and said, hey, Jerry, you know, I really want to give that money to the Lord, I really want to pay myself first, but right now, you know, we're struggling to make ends meet. What would be your advice?
Yeah, we have that question asked very often, especially with Christians that call us. They'll say, you know, I want to do my tithe, I want to do some offerings, but you can see from my budget, I can't even afford this. And I agree with them, and it's true. So what we do is we start attacking this and say, okay, you owe this much now, and you make it. You will make more money probably next year than you make this year. If we work on these budgets, you'll owe less money next year than this year. God knows where you're at, so you don't have to explain it to me or God. God knows where you're at, but He wants your heart. And if this year you start giving Him $1, He sees your heart. You can give $1. and then work towards that tithe so it's 10%, or it can be 20%, you know, whatever you want to give. But you start working on that. You start getting away from other things and reprioritize. God, you're the number one. I want to start giving to you because I've been giving to them because it was for me.
Wow.
So now I'm going to change that around. I'm going to give to you first, and I'm going to get rid of this debt, and I'm going to put you back first. And it took a while for them, God, to get on the bottom, and it's going to take a while for God's priority to get on the top of you.
That's great.
But you start working on it $1 at a time. Next month, I'm going to give $3. I'm going to give $8. And you'll see something happen in your life. God will bless you.
Yeah,
you'll get a raise. You'll feel better about it. You know, say, honey, I don't want to go out tonight. I don't want to use God's money to go out tonight. Let's cook at home. Or
yeah, wow. Now you have been with Christian Credit Counselors, you know, since you founded it was in 1990, and now you're retired, but you still stay involved. You still volunteer. What is your continuing passion? I mean, one of the, you know, Greg jokes, your son jokes a lot about how many retirement parties you had, because something on the inside just keeps burning away, that you just want to keep helping people, you want to keep getting involved and staying involved. You know, explain a little bit about what drives you.
Well, you know, credit counseling is just the best thing people can do. I mean, if you're having financial power, I have to tell you, my brother came through, I have 3 cousins who come through our program. It is just the best thing you can do. Credit counseling that pays your bills each month, timely. Not credit counseling that they call credit counseling and it's debt settlement and all that stuff. You want a licensed, regulated, state-regulated credit counselor. Whether it's profit or nonprofit, they usually all charge about the same rates. So that's not a big issue. But it's just so good for people. I mean, I talk to people all the time and at churches and schools, and they say, well, how can I do this? Well, it all starts with a budget, and then you know, what are you going to do? And that's what we do here. So it's just bringing what the family values are into this.
Now, tell me a little bit about Catherine's kids, because obviously you're still involved with CCC just on a volunteer level, but then you've had this vision to really reach out and start a, you know, Catherine's Kids organization to help underprivileged kids. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing with that? Well,
first of all, it started with my wife and I for years never took any salary out of, for 15 years we didn't take a salary from Christian Credit Counselors. So that money that in a nonprofit that would have been dedicated, we saved, and then we started Catherine's. Well, first of all, we started supporting orphanages, you know, and a couple of special needs orphanages. And then as they got more and more and more, and I got more on my own, and you know, and away from some of the responsibilities of Christian Credit, we started calling this Catherine's Children's Home, named after my mother. So it's just devoted to that, so that Christian Credit isn't doing this and this and this. They helped fund the initial funds for that. And now my other company does, and myself and my family, we support it. So we have 6 children's homes. They're all in Baja. They're special, and a new special needs one. But we have spinal bifida kids and AIDS babies and just all kind of things that clubfoot, brain tumors, everything else. And we get them to hospitals. We have a relationship with Rady's Children's Hospital and Shiners, so that we can do these things and get the kids where they need to be. We don't do any operations or anything like that, but we're hiring 2 doctors now and some nurses down there so that they can help oversee them. And we have a physical therapist, Sue Athens, that's taking care of it, and she's kind of running the place. She's our mainstay, and that is very exciting. That is very exciting.
What would be something that you just, a principle, a financial principle that you just live and swear by, that really is the foundation for, that you would want to pass on? If you were like the last thing that you could just kind of pass on to this generation, what would that be?
Well, as I said before, you always have a savings account. I remember when I was 15, I saved up $100 delivering papers in a farm area, and I saved it. And when I sold that I bought a little car and I sold it, I put that money in a savings account. And I've always had a savings account, and it doesn't matter how much. Once you get used to saving, you know, if you're used to spending, it's contagious, and it multiplies. And if you get used to saving and doing things that are prudent, you just shape your life that way. And again, I got to go back to pay God is 10%. I mean, I tell people, if we're partners, and I say I'm going to give you $100, and I only want $10 back, and you won't give me the 10, what kind of partner are you? So don't cheat God, because things just not going to run great in your life. I mean, God got me to this point here. I'm healthy. I've had a great life. I have a lot of energy, and I'm God's child. So I don't want to cheat the person that put me here.
Yeah. Well, it's fantastic, Jerry. It's been so great having you on with us. It was great talking to your son last week, and it's been absolutely fabulous having you on.
Thank you for
the show
asking me.
again today. We really appreciate that, and appreciate all your wisdom. I'm sure that all of you who are watching in and tuning in have really enjoyed that, and we'll definitely look forward to having Jerry back again on a future episode of GSP TV. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We'll be back in a moment. Hey, welcome back. Wasn't that a fantastic interview? I really enjoyed all of Jerry's great wisdom that he shared with us. We'll definitely have him back on here at GSP TV. Now we're coming to the end of our program, and of course, as always, we share our money saving tip. And the money saving tip this week is about borrowing or buying used. Now, you can search online for used bookstores, electronic stores, or thrift or consignment stores. You'll end up paying half as much for your next book. I've heard people buy used books for as little as 99 cents. Now, how about borrowing? When was the last time that you visited your local library? Although it might not always have the latest book releases, you can never go wrong with the classics. You can even check out movies and audiobooks and use their computers or internet if you don't have your own at home. So, think about these great money saving tips. They can save you a lot of money over the course of a year. If you're buying used or borrowing at a library or other such institutions, all the savings can add up to be hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. So we just want to thank you again for tuning in to GSP TV. Of course, we always welcome viewer feedback. Check out all the ways to get involved with us and connect with us and give us feedback every single week. We'd love to hear from you. And I just want to give you a closing thought. And because we've been talking about goals, I want to give you today's goal, a goal for you today. And this should be a goal for you every day. Start with Jesus, stay with Jesus, and end with Jesus. If your day is always filled with God, you'll know that your day is always going to be off to a great start, a great middle, and a great finish. That's a great goal to always have. God bless you, and I can't wait to see you on our next episode next week on GSP TV. Bye for now.